Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going on a little treasure hunt, and you don't even need a map or a shovel. All you might need is your pocket change, maybe that old jar of coins sitting on your dresser. We're talking about a coin that millions of people handled, spent, and maybe just tossed aside without a second thought, the 1965 Washington quarter. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. A 1965 quarter? Isn't that just pocket change? And most of the time you'd be right. But this seemingly ordinary coin has a fascinating story, born out of a major crisis in American coinage. And hidden within that story is the potential, just maybe, for a very valuable surprise. So stick around as we uncover the history, the secrets, and the surprising value hidden in the 1965 quarter. Imagine it's the early 1960s. Silver prices are starting to climb. For years, American dimes, quarters, and half dollars were made of 90% silver. They felt substantial, had that classic shine, and their value was tied directly to the precious metal they contained. But as silver got more expensive, a problem arose. The actual silver in the coins was starting to be worth more than the face value, more than 10 cents for a dime, 25 cents for a quarter. What happens when the metal in a coin is worth more than its spending power? People hoard them. They started pulling silver coins out of circulation, melting them down, or just keeping them stashed away. This created a massive coin shortage. Vending machines ran empty. Cash registers were short on change. It was becoming a real headache for everyday business. The government knew they had to act fast. The solution? The Coinage Act of 1965. This was a landmark decision. It decreed that dimes and quarters would no longer be made of silver. Instead, they'd switch to a new clad composition. Think of it like a sandwich. The outer layers were a copper-nickel alloy, the same stuff used in nickel, all bonded to a core of pure copper. You could actually see this if you looked at the edge of the coin. That distinctive copper stripe appeared. Half dollars kept a reduced silver content for a few more years. But for dimes and quarters, 1964 was the end of the silver era. So the 1965 quarter marks this huge transition. It's the first year of the clad Washington quarter. Visually, it looks almost identical to its silver predecessors. You've still got George Washington's familiar profile on the front, the obverse, and designed by John Flanagan way back in 1932. And on the back, the reverse, you have the heraldic eagle with wings spread. The size and basic design stayed the same to ensure vending machines and coin counters still worked. The big difference was hidden inside and on the edge. It felt a little lighter, and that copper core gave it away. Now, let's talk about something that confuses a lot of people, the mint mark, or rather, the lack of one on the 1965 quarter. Before 1965, you could often find a little letter on the reverse of the quarter, usually a D for the Denver Mint or an S for San Francisco. Coins from the main mint in Philadelphia usually had no mint mark back then. People often collected coins by year and mint mark. But in 1965, 1966, and 1967, no U.S. coins bore mint marks. Why? Well, remember that coin shortage and the hoarding problem? The government worried that if they put mint marks on the new clad coins immediately, collectors might hoard coins from one mint, thinking they might be rarer, making the shortage even worse during this critical transition period. So, to discourage hoarding based on mint location, they simply left the mint marks off all coins for those 3 years. This means every single one of the roughly 1.8 billion quarters minted for the 1965 has no mint mark. Let that number sink in. 1.8 billion. That's a huge reason why most 1965 quarters you find are only worth face value. They made an absolute mountain of them to combat the shortage and get the new clad coins into circulation. So if you find a 1965 quarter and it doesn't have a D or an S or any mint mark at all, that's completely normal. It doesn't automatically make it special or valuable. It just means it's, well, a 1965 quarter made during that specific period when mint marks were intentionally omitted. It could have been minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or even San Francisco, which helped produce coins without mint marks during this time, but there's no way to tell which one just by looking at the coin. Okay, so if most 1965 quarters are common and worth face value, where does the potential value come in? It really boils down to two main things, condition and errors. Let's touch on condition first, or what collectors call grading. Coins are graded on a scale from poor, barely identifiable, all the way up to mint state, perfect uncirculated. For a super common coin like the 1965 quarter, it needs to be in really fantastic shape to be worth more than 25 cents. Think about the journey a quarter takes. It gets tossed in pockets, rattled in purses, dropped, used in vending machines. It gets scratched, worn down, dinged up. Most 1965 quarters you find will be in what's called circulated condition, maybe graded somewhere between good and extremely fine. In these grades, because there are so many available, they're typically just worth face value. But what if you find one that looks like it just rolled off the mint press? Shiny, lustrous, with no visible wear. Maybe just a few tiny bag marks from bumping against other coins. That's an uncirculated or mint state MS coin. A typical 1965 quarter in lower mint state grades, say MS60 to MS63, might fetch a few dollars. As the condition gets closer to perfection, like MS65 or MS66, the value can climb. Maybe $10, $20, or even a bit more for exceptionally nice examples graded by a professional service. Finding one in top grades like MS67 or MS68 is very tough, and those can be worth significantly more, perhaps even over $100 because perfection is rare, even among billions. So here's a quick mental value guide. Found it in your change, looks worn, likely 25 cents. Looks pretty nice, maybe kept in a jar for years. Still probably 25 cents, maybe $1 if it's really quite shiny. Looks almost perfect, like it was never spent. Could be worth $5 to $20, maybe more if it's truly exceptional and professionally graded. But the real excitement, the potential jackpot with the 1965 quarter, lies in the errors. And there's one error in particular that gets collectors' hearts racing. Remember how 1964 was the last year for 90% silver quarters and 1965 was the first year for clad? Well, picture the chaos at the U.S. Mint during that changeover. They were phasing out trillions of old silver coin blanks, called planchets, and bringing in trillions of new clad planchets. It was a massive logistical operation. And somewhere, somehow, a mistake happened. A few leftover 90% silver planchets from 1964 accidentally got mixed in with the new clad planchets and were struck with the 1965 dies. This created an incredibly rare and valuable error, the 1965 silver quarter. This is what collectors call a transitional error. It's a 1965 date, but on the wrong type of metal, the valuable silver metal from the year before. Finding one of these is like finding a numismatic needle in a haystack. How can you tell if you've hit the jackpot? There are a few key signs. Weight. This is the most definitive test if you have an accurate scale. A standard clad 1965 quarter weighs about 5.67 grams. A 90% silver quarter, like those from 1964 or the rare 1965 silver era, weighs noticeably more, around 6.25 grams. That difference might seem small, but on a sensitive scale, it's clear. The edge. Look at the edge of the coin. A normal 1965 clad quarter has that visible copper stripe running through the middle of the nickel layers. A silver quarter, however, will have a solid silver or grayish-white edge, no copper sandwich visible. Sound. Some old-school collectors swear by the ring test. Silver coins tend to have a higher-pitched, more resonant ring when dropped carefully on a hard surface compared to the duller thud of a clad coin. This is less scientific, though, so rely on weight and the edge first. Color, luster. Silver has a particular sheen that's different from the sometimes brighter, sometimes duller look of aged copper-nickel clad. This is subjective, but if a 1965 quarter looks exactly like a pre-1965 silver quarter, it warrants a closer look. If you suspect you have a 1965 silver quarter error, it's absolutely worth getting it checked out by a reputable coin dealer or submitting it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Why? Because these errors are valuable. Depending heavily on the condition, how worn or pristine it is, a genuine 1965 silver quarter can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Some have sold for over $7,000 in very high grades. It's the ultimate prize for someone sifting through 1965 quarters. While the silver error is the big one, other less dramatic errors can also occur on 1965 quarters, just like any other coin. These might include double dies, where elements of the design appear double due to a mistake in the die creation process. These are usually subtle and require magnification. Off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't lined up properly and the design is shifted, leaving part of the coin blank. Clipped planches, where a piece of the blank coin disc was missing before it was struck, resulting in a crescent-shaped indent. Strike-through errors, where a foreign object, like a piece of grease, cloth, or metal, came between the die and the planche during striking, leaving an imprint or a weak spot. The value of these minor errors varies wildly based on how dramatic and obvious the error is and the overall condition of the coin. A small die crack might add very little value, while a major off-center strike or a significant double die could be worth $50, $100, or sometimes more. They aren't usually in the same league as the silver error, but they're still fun finds for error collectors. So let's say you've gone through your change, checked that old coin jar, and you think you have either a very high-grade 1965 quarter or, even better, one of the rare errors, maybe even the silver one. What do? Where can you sell it? First, try to get an idea of its authenticity and potential value. Local coin shops, a good starting point. Find a reputable dealer in your area. They can often give you a quick appraisal or make an offer. They need to make a profit, so expect an offer below retail value, but it's convenient. Coin shows. These events bring together many dealers and collectors. You can shop your coin around to get multiple opinions and offers. Online dealers. Many established coin dealers have websites and buy coins from the public. Do your research to ensure they are reputable. Online marketplaces, sites like eBay, can expose your coin to a large audience, but selling requires good photos, accurate descriptions, and understanding fees and shipping. Be cautious of scammers. For potentially valuable errors like the silver 1965, it's highly recommended to get it professionally graded and authenticated before selling online. This protects both you and the buyer. Remember, for common, circulated 1965 quarters, there really isn't a market beyond face value. Focus your selling efforts on high-grade uncirculated coins or confirmed error coins. So, the 1965 Washington quarter. It's a coin born from necessity, marking a fundamental shift in U.S. coinage history away from precious metal. Billions were made, making most of them common pocket change today. The lack of a mint mark is normal for its year, not a sign of rarity, but within that massive montage lies the story. The story of the silver crisis, the transition to clad coins, and the exciting possibility of finding that rare silver transitional error. While the odds are long, the chance of discovering a 1965 quarter struck on silver keeps collectors searching. Even finding a pristine, uncirculated example or a minor error coin can be a rewarding little victory. Next time you get a quarter in change, take that extra second to check the date. If it's 1965, look at the edge. Check its weight if you can. You probably won't find the silver error, but maybe, just maybe, you'll be the lucky one, and even if not, you now know the fascinating history behind that everyday coin. Thanks for joining me on this dive into the 1965 quarter. Let me know in the comments if you've ever found one or if you have any questions. Happy hunting, and I'll see you